What's going on, everyone? Earlier today, we got this report. Nets have not given up on Kevin Durant. Brooklyn is holding out hope that Durant will retract his trade request per ESPN. Now, obviously, Kevin Durant requested a trade about a month ago now or so, and the Brooklyn Nets have been trying to trade him. But the problem is that they're not finding suitors suitable and packages great enough for Kevin Durant. And the hope is to draw this out long enough that Kevin Durant says, okay, fine, I'll stay. Now, when it comes to Kevin Durant and the reason he requested a trade, there's even mixed reports about that. Right, there was a report recently that Kevin Durant actually requested the trade because Kyrie opted in, that he no longer wants to play with Kyrie Irving. That I don't really buy, just because I think if Kevin Durant went to Joe Tsai and he went to Sean Marks and he was like, look, I don't want Kyrie here. Like, I will stay if you get rid of Kyrie. Kyrie would have been traded this time last month, right? I mean, it would have already been a done deal. They would have traded Kyrie for whatever they had to if it meant keeping Kevin Durant. The original report was that he was upset that the Nets didn't give Kyrie Irving, the max extension, and, he was upset about that. So that, I think, is probably the case. I think he's just in a position where he's just like, you did it. I came here for Kyrie. I never really wanted to come here to begin with. I came for Kyrie. If Kyrie leaves, I don't want to be here. I don't need to be here. I could go elsewhere, right? And so that, to me, I think is the most realistic explanation for why Kevin Durant wanted to be traded. And now the Nets are kind of courting him and hoping that maybe he will stay. Like, maybe we can ride it out for another year. And then if things go well, maybe Kevin Durant decides, hey, but in the meantime, they're trying to trade him. But the well is really drying up, right? I mean, Phoenix was the original, number one option. It's where Kevin Durant wanted to go. They had pieces that made a lot of sense. But when the Indiana Pacers called the note, so to speak, on the DeAndre Ayton thing, that basically ruled out any chance of the Phoenix Suns getting Kevin Durant, at least this season, right? Because DeAndre Ayton, one, has veto power for the rest of the year in any trade, and he can't be traded till late December or early January. So it's months from now before that can happen. Now, of course, maybe you revisit that before the trade deadline. That's always a possibility, and maybe something gets worked out. Miami, they basically have taken themselves out of it, and the Brooklyn Nets, all of the reports state that, the Nets don't view Miami's package as anywhere close to good enough for Kevin Durant. And Boston is the real wild card, right? Boston has enough to actually get the deal done. There was talks that there was trade negotiations, but that has stalled since then. We haven't heard any reports in the last, couple days in regards to that. So the well for Kevin Durant is really drying up. And I do think the most likely scenario is that Kevin Durant stays with the Brooklyn Nets, at least this season. And maybe at the trade deadline, maybe next season, they try to work something out to trade Kevin Durant. But I don't know what could happen and go right to get Kevin Durant to stay. The team he has, don't get me wrong, is great on paper, right? But there's a lot of questions with Ben Simmons. Is he even going to play? Kyrie Irving, what is he going to do? Is he going to play? Especially Kyrie. And especially if the report is true that Kevin Durant doesn't want Kyrie there. But again, if that was true, I just think that the Nets would have already traded him. Although, if you're Kevin Durant, Kyrie's your best friend. Do you really want to go and say that publicly? And then they tell Kyrie, hey, your friend wants you out, so you're gone. And now you kind of ruin the relationship. So maybe it is true. But even then, it's just why are the Nets waiting so long? And that's the big question, especially with Kyrie Irving. Why are the Nets waiting to trade Kyrie one way or another? Now, I do think Kyrie Irving gets traded regardless, unless, Kevin Durant and Kyrie can work something out. But as of right now, all signs seem to be that Kyrie Irving's leaving, right? If the Nets really wanted to keep Kyrie, wouldn't they just say, hey, we're not trading Kyrie one way or another? If the reports were true that Kyrie wants to stay with or without Kevin Durant, don't you think Kyrie would have said that publicly, or the Nets would have said that publicly, and this would be over? I mean, the Nets could easily just push the eject button on the Kyrie Irving trade, and this would just all go away. Just because, there's no other teams but the Lakers. So I do think, and I could be completely wrong, but whether Kyrie stays or not, if Kyrie does stay, there's a lot of big questions on what kind of Kyrie is Brooklyn going to get? Are they going to get a Kyrie that maybe is motivated and wants a max extension, or not extension, but just contract in general, right? Because he's going to be a free agent. Do they want to just run it back with him? And do the Nets even want to keep him? Because even if he does buy in, if he ends up leaving and say go signs with the Lakers, the Nets don't have the money to replace him. If Kyrie leaves, they literally lose him for nothing, and they're still cap strapped because Ben Simmons is on a max contract, Kevin Durant's on a max contract. You have Joe Harris, who's on a $19 million a year deal the following season. You have guys that you signed to multi-year deals. So you have no way of getting another superstar. So is Kevin Durant going to want to stay there with just Ben Simmons and a bunch of role guys? So I just think regardless, the idea of them holding out hope, I just think is good. I don't think it's going to be live very long. I don't see Kevin Durant saying like, yeah, I'm going to stay. Now, if maybe they give Kyrie a max extension and that ends up being the case, then yeah, then maybe, if they can work it out. I just see this being a total disaster for the Brooklyn Nets if they try to hold out and play hardball. Now, again, could be completely wrong. Maybe they have a great year. Winning solves everything. If Kyrie Irving comes back and he's motivated, Ben Simmons comes back and motivated, they have enough to win a championship. And if they win a championship, maybe the following year, Kyrie Irving signs an extension. Maybe Kevin Durant decides, hey, we just won a chip, I'll stay. Ben Simmons is all happy, proved all the haters wrong, all that stuff. And maybe, you're living in utopia in Brooklyn. But I just think it is a huge risk and gamble that the Nets are playing. And so far, it hasn't worked out. I mean, they've had one playoff win since this team was put together with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. James Harden was traded there. And immediately it was like, yeah, no, I want out of here. And ended up getting traded. Now they went and got Ben Simmons. And it's like, you got a guy that might not even play next year. If he can't get his mind right, can his body stay healthy, stuff like that. It's just, there's just so much unknown. And I just think Kevin Durant's looking at the landscape and going, Kyrie's probably leaving next year if they don't trade him this year. Ben Simmons, I can't count on. He's more unreliable than Kyrie is. And then it's just me and a bunch of role players. I'm locked in here for 4 years, and we don't have money to replace Kyrie Irving. And if Ben Simmons doesn't ball out, he has no trade value. What am I going to do? I'm stuck here for 4 years with a bunch of role players and a Ben Simmons that can't even show up. Kyrie left me. I just think that Kevin Durant just is I think that's why he wants to be traded. I don't think it has anything to do with Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving. I don't think it has to do with anything. You can't tell me Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant didn't have a conversation, that they didn't talk about what is going to happen. And you can't tell me that Kyrie Irving didn't say, I want out of Brooklyn. I'm leaving Brooklyn. One way or another, I'm leaving Brooklyn. That was the original report. And all of Kyrie's camp were telling all of the teams that, hey, he's going to the Lakers, whether he's traded or he signs next season. And if that happened, I do imagine Kyrie told Kevin Durant the same thing. And Kevin Durant probably looked at that and went, no Kyrie, Ben Simmons that I can't count on, a bunch of role guys, and no money to go get me help. I don't want to be here. I want to be traded. And I don't see that changing. I don't see that being the end result. I don't think the Nets are going to win a championship next year. I don't think, even if they had 100% Kyrie Irving and got swept in the playoffs by the Boston Celtics. So it's like they still have essentially the same team. They added, 2 new additions? But they also lost 2 or 3 new additions. I mean, TJ Warren, he could be a stud for them. He could be a 20-point-a-game guy, but he has a lot of injury history and concerns. And Ben Simmons, he might not even play. So it's just, I don't think it's going to go well for the Brooklyn Nets, if I'm being honest. But anyway, those are my thoughts and opinions. And as always, I pass the question on to you. Let me know yours down in the comment section below. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you think Kevin Durant isn't going to retract his trade request? He's going to want to be traded. Whether Brooklyn does it or not, they don't have to. I do think the most likely scenario is that Kevin Durant at least stays in Brooklyn this year, or at least until the trade deadline. Maybe you get a team, once the trade deadline happens, maybe you get a team that feels like, hey, we're in a good seating, we're in a good spot. If we can get Kevin Durant, I really think we can make a run for a championship here. Let's meet the demand for Kevin Durant and go get him. Maybe that happens. Maybe he does get traded at the trade deadline. Maybe the Lakers end up trading for Kyrie at that point. But even then, at that point, the Lakers probably looked elsewhere and did something different. Because I don't think the Lakers are going to do anything until the Kyrie Irving thing is dead. Until they know, okay, we're not going to get Kyrie Irving. I just think that the Lakers are going to stand pat and trying to pursue Kyrie Irving. But if, they go into the season, we go into training camp, the Lakers likely looking at something else. So then they, if they trade Kevin Durant, now at that point, if you're trading Kyrie Irving, you're trading Kyrie for a bag of peanuts. Now you're not getting anything close to what you would have gotten. And that's why I think the Nets are going to trade Kyrie Irving before training camp, which is still like a month away. But I just think that they would be silly to not. I mean, unless Kyrie Irving talks to Kevin Durant and says, dude, let's ride it out this season. Trade request is off, all that stuff. But if that's happened, why haven't the Nets just came out and said that? Why haven't the Nets say, hey, we're going to run it back at least this year with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and we'll see what happens. I just think that however you look at it, the Nets need to get something back for Kyrie Irving, whether it's assets that they can use to trade in a later deal, or, if they can get back a player or two, maybe you work out a 3-team deal and you get back Miles Turner. You need something because the Nets don't have money. They don't have assets. They don't have anything. And if Kevin Durant keeps demanding a trade, you're just going to have a terrible locker room. You're going to have a locker room that is on the verge of imploding. You're going to have a team that's not going to win a championship, and because nobody wants to be there, nobody's buying in. Kevin Durant isn't going to give 100%. I don't think he's going to sit out and not play, but he's definitely going to be like, is he going to kill himself to try to lead this Nets team to a championship when he doesn't want to be there? You want a fully bought in Kevin Durant. You want a fully bought in Kyrie Irving. If they're like, we're leaving next year, who cares what happens? That's not good for them. But again, my thoughts and opinions, I'd love to hear yours down in the comment section below. One last little shameless plug is I did start As It Stands Lakers. It is a channel just like this, dedicated to only the Lakers, because the Lakers are my favorite team. And on this channel, As It Stands, I talk about all teams, all sports, stuff like that. We have football season coming up, so I'm definitely looking forward to that as well. And I just wanted to make a dedicated channel to the Lakers to give the ins and outs. Now, all the big stuff, all the big news and stuff, I will still post here on this channel. But if you want all the ins and outs and just rumors and theories and just discussions just strictly on the Lakers, link down in the description or in the comment section. Go check out the channel, subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. That being said, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot, lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports. Join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.